any change that is made becomes something that people pick on. Well, that's not the way it was in the book. That's not the way it ended. That's not the way it was done. And yet, if you remain absolutely to the letter faithful to the source content, it becomes very difficult to make a film that's lively, that has some life and energy to it, because it's sort of predictable, because we know everything that's going to happen. But you see these comments are made all the time about
Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, all
even in some of my favorite literature to film adaptations. I love the literature to film adaptation of 1984.
1984.
The one shot in 1984, not the one shot in 1956. And this also shows one of the problems. Crucial to 1984 is the text within the text. The book that's buried, if you know 1984, the pages that have to be torn apart to reveal the subversive text that's written. There's absolutely no way to reveal that in the book. When you read the book, you read the subversive text. But in the film, there isn't. But otherwise, I think it's an incredibly faithful adaptation that also takes it in new directions. So adaptation is almost has to happen with film. But in children's literature, as we said, it's much more difficult because of the affection that people have felt for these films over the years, which is one of the reasons why fairy tales are so successful for being converted into films. Because fairy tales, by their very nature, have variations from telling to telling. Hansel and Gretel is essentially the same, but it can vary a little bit. Every culture has a version of Cinderella.
Right.
In fact, there's in some of the research I did. Did I send you that link to the analysis of fairy tales that I came across some scholarly research that tracks and quantifies fairy tales by certain set themes.
Interesting.
There's several hundred of them, but Cinderella is probably the closest we get to a universal tale in human culture. And back to Disney again. And again, something that Cartmel talks about, that what you think of a work depends upon how you've approached, how you first came to the work. For many, many, many people, The Wizard of Oz is the film.
Yeah, it's not the book, it's the film.
It's not the book. People came to and in fact, when the book Wicked came out and was quite successful, I had conversations with people about Wicked, and I found people saying, "Well, I've never read the original book. I've never read The Wizard of Oz."
Right.
So they didn't rankle to the things that were different in Wicked the way I did, because they only knew the film. And then, of course, when I saw the stage play, or not they only knew the film. And then when I saw the stage production of Wicked, I rankled from the way it varied from the book.
The book, yeah.
And one of the things that I noted and because I think we're going to see a film version of Wicked. I think it's actually in production right now. Lends itself to that.
I'm pretty sure it's being made right now. Wicked, yeah.
But one of the things I noticed when I went to see it was that there's a scene somewhere in Oz where there are these characters. They don't appear anywhere else in the show. They are just in the chorus in this dance number. And I realized that they are the Quadlings who are in the book, who are in the original source book.
I know about the Munchkins, but not the Quadlings.
The Quadlings, they have very long necks and they can extend their head very far.
Yeah, they're not in the film.
They're not in the film. So, back to fairy tales. So, how you originally come to the work tends to frame your perception of what is What is the work?
Yeah.
So if I were to say to you 101 Dalmatians, you very likely would not think of the book version of 101 Dalmatians. You would think of the
Disney film.
Would you think of the Disney film or animated film, or would you think of the live-action film that was a remake of the Disney film?
With Glenn Close as Cruella.
Oh, wonderful casting.
Yeah, good casting.
But perfect casting.
For me personally, it's the animated version because I saw that first and it had an imprint on my childhood. Sure.
So I know we keep coming back to Disney. We sort of have to come back to Disney because Disney essentially created the market for children's film.
Children's film as we know it.
And virtually nothing that Disney produced as feature film, in animation or live action, is original content. It's all adaptations of existing works. I read once that the only two Disney works that are original are The Love Bug and Dumbo. But I haven't gone any further to search that. And I have a dachshund, and about a year ago, I picked up Disney's Ugly Dachshund to watch.
The Ugly Dachshund.
And Pauline Kael talks about it in her book Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And she walked out on it because it was so dreadful. But what happens is, and we go into a different direction with libraries now, a little off topic on children's literature, and that's the issue of copyright. Because Disney is considered one of the staunchest defenders of copyright.
Oh yes.
And cease and desist to people who are using Disney, unlicensed Disney images, etc. But what Disney has done is appropriated public domain. Disney has taken Cinderella, The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Pocahontas, which is American history, maybe popular history, but Sleeping Beauty, did I say Snow White? And has done versions of those. And then if anyone else does something with the story, comes in and says, no, we own that. And part of the reason that happens is that people have in their mind an image of what Snow White looks like. And Snow White looks like the Disney Snow White. Now, of course, the Disney Snow White looks the way she does because the fairy tale dictated that she had to be very pale-skinned, very black hair, very red lips. So, but it happens. Disney does it. I think, as long as I'm on Disney and I'm slamming them around a little bit, we'll talk a little bit about Pinocchio, which was very well received critically for its appearance, but did not do nearly as well as other Disney films. Pinocchio came to the Disney studios not from Walt Disney himself, who is rumored to say he did not like to read, but from his crew, from his staff, who brought the idea forward. And Pinocchio is a well-established, not a fairy tale, not a public domain. It's an authored story from Italy, but very popular and well-known in Italian culture. A very dark tale. Pinocchio is mischievous. Pinocchio is a bad boy. Pinocchio misbehaves. And in Disney's hands, he is so homogenized and so cleaned up and so purified for the didactic good and evil. Disney makes extremely clear, in almost all of their works, Disney makes extremely clear divisions between what is good and what is evil. There is no